Hey there, thank you for joining me for another one of these video messages. This one's going to take a Bible verse that a lot of you probably know well, whether you call yourself a Christian or not, whether you are really in church regularly or not. I want to talk for a minute about Jeremiah 29:11. And in the NRSV, it's worded this way: "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope." And we hear this verse all the time. I've heard it all the time. We actually got it on a card when one of our daughters was born. Someone sent us a card and it had this verse in it. Congratulations, you're becoming a parent. Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope in the future. It's just this beautiful thought. A lot of people are holding on to this incredibly beautiful thought, thinking that, it's saying that good things are coming. And then I got into Bible classes, and this happens some when you get into Bible classes in college or in seminary, master's level, graduate level work. You look at a lot of these passages like Jeremiah 29:11 and find out that they're kind of out of context. Yes, Jeremiah 29:11, the words are the same, but Jeremiah is talking in a specific context. There are certain things happening that Jeremiah is addressing. The rest of what Jeremiah is saying doesn't line up with just this all peachy and fine way that we often say Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah is talking to the people of Israel as they're getting ready to be sent into exile. They have watched Jerusalem get destroyed. Their enemy army is facing them. And Jeremiah, at the beginning of Jeremiah 29, he notes he's penning a letter to the exiles, to the leaders of Israel who are getting taken away in exile. And it tells the people of Israel, hey, get comfy. You're not in the land. You're in exile. This disaster's happened. Get used to it. Get used to being off in a distant land that you don't belong in. Build houses. Continue to marry. Seek the welfare of the city, of the enemy, is kind of what's being said there. Seek the good of your enemy, the good of the people who have so harmed you. Seek their good. And he explains this is because in verse 10, for thus says the Lord, only when Babylon's 70 years are completed will I visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. What Jeremiah is telling the people of Israel is, hey, this disaster's happened, and it is going to take 70 years before anything better happens. For the next 70 years, we're going to have lost the promise of God. God had promised them this land. They saw that as God's promise, and, hey, 70 years, you're going to be without that. For 70 years, you're going to be without God's presence. They believed that God's presence was in the temple, and the temple has been destroyed. And so God says, hey, look, I'm not going to visit you again for 70 years. You are going to be away in exile, and you're just gone. And I am not present with you there. It's a very painful word. It's a very harsh word to hear from God, that God is letting the people suffer and that more suffering is still to come. And in addition to this, Jeremiah is telling the people, look, you're going to suffer. This is going to be hard. This isn't getting better. This is only going to get worse. And other prophets are saying, no, God told me it's fine. Everything's fine. It's going to be fine. God's, it's just a brief blip on the radar. Everything is okay. And so Jeremiah even says, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, do not let the prophets and the diviners who are among you deceive you, and do not listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them, says the Lord." So not only is there a huge disaster happening, there are people saying, no, you know what, it's going to be fine, it's going to be okay, you don't have to worry, everything's going to work out. And here comes Jeremiah, and he's saying, they're lying to you. The people who are saying that things are going to be fine are lying. The people who are saying the suffering's almost over are lying. God says it's going to be 70 more years of suffering, 70 more years where we don't see God at work, where we don't see God's promises. And only after that time is God going to come. And that's where this famous verse comes in. You're going to keep suffering. You're going to suffer long and hard. It is going to be horrible torment for the next 70 years. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. I'm not sure if, in the context that Jeremiah wrote this, you really want to be sending this to someone who just had a kid. In a lot of ways, like, it feels like this verse doesn't have the same meaning. It feels like it doesn't have the same power about it. I mean, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to suffer more, and I'm supposed to trust that God has plans for my good now? I think that's exactly what Jeremiah is saying. And I remember in school, like, hearing how we've divorced this verse out of its context, and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, the verse doesn't mean all those cheery, happy things, does it? I mean, look at that. What were we thinking before? But the verse doesn't mean something different than what other people take it to mean. I think the verse means something more, something deeper, something more profound. Because we throw this verse around as like, oh yeah, God's got good things in store for me and everything's going to be great. But that's such a shallow reading of this verse. For thus says the Lord, for surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. That we take it and it's like, oh yeah, there aren't going to be bad things coming. But that's not what Jeremiah is saying. What Jeremiah is saying is, I know there are bad things coming. I know this is hard. But God knows the plans that are there. God knows what's going to happen. God is intimately involved in what's happening. And in spite of all of the pain, and in spite of all of the suffering, God has plans that will work out for good. Only God is able to take what is bad and work it for the good of those who love him. That means so much more. This verse isn't just a verse that, oh, everything is sunny and fine, and I can say, yes, look at that. Look, that verse came true. But this verse can be a promise for us when we're in the midst of our pain and suffering that, wow, even now, God knows the plans that God has for me. And it hurts, but this isn't for harm. This is to give me a better future. And in fact, Jeremiah goes on. Verse 11 isn't where this stops. Jeremiah continues. Then when you call upon me and come and pray to me, I will hear you. When you search for me, you will find me if you seek me with all your heart. I will let you find me, says the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, says the Lord. and I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. It's like God is saying through Jeremiah, I know this hurts and I know that this is terrible, but I have plans to bless you and to help purify you in this, to make you better than you were before in this. And if you give me a chance to use the pain that you're experiencing to draw you closer to me, you will experience a closeness that you didn't have before. And you will regain the blessing that you've lost. And something beautiful can come out of this. And right now we're in the middle of all of the coronavirus pandemic, and people are really feeling it. It's stressing everyone out, being stuck inside. It is stressing everyone out, not having similar sources of income, and some people aren't able to work. Some people are being forced to work who maybe shouldn't. Small businesses are really struggling. Churches and nonprofits are struggling for funding during this time, and it is a scary time. And a lot of people are getting sick. It is a very difficult time. But maybe this verse that Jeremiah gave to the people of Israel during the most difficult time they would ever face in their history, maybe this verse holds something for us. Maybe God is saying to us, surely I know the plans I have for you. Plans for your welfare and not for harm. To give you a future with hope. In this time, how can we draw closer to God to find hope in what is a very dark time? In this time, how can we see God planting seeds in us to help give us a better future than we might have had otherwise? What is God shaking up in us? What is there that God is trying to birth in us to give us a future with hope? Throughout the Bible, God is the one who takes the brokenness of this world, who takes the horrible things that happen and doesn't cause them. God doesn't make them happen to us. God doesn't choose to inflict some of us with pain and some of us without it. But throughout the Bible, God is the only one who is able to take that pain and use it to do something good, and use it to do something to better us, use it to give us a hope and a future. So how is God speaking these words to you once again? Surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. God bless you. Take care.